Welcome once again to Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today is Vasil Shevchenko, former transportation minister in Ukraine. Vasil, it's a pleasure to have you on again.
Nice to see you too.
Likewise. Yeah, so I heard that Putin is doubling down on his shelling and distraction back there in Ukraine.
To be honest, we have really difficult time because they try to strengthen their forces attack, and Ukrainian forces are defending Ukraine's territory. You know that at the autumn they drafted new soldiers. It means that it took 3 hours, and they were drilling them 300,000 officially, and we don't know which number unofficially. And then they started walking through military army. Now its army is called gangs because they decided to send prisoners, new draftee, and prepared to Ukraine forces, and they were they have been attacking Ukraine forces, and they concentrated their forces at the little piece of battle line. For example, they managed to surround Ukraine city, a little city, better to say big village, and there was concentration 660 thousand soldiers, Wagner Group, private army, and from both sides were located Russian troops, and they were storming during long times, and they used tactics, Second World War tactics, when Ukrainian soldiers named it meat attack. They were sending every wave soldiers every minute, and first wave it's mercenaries from Wagner Group who were drafted from prisons. Then were new draftee, and after that were storming Russian more experienced soldiers. And Ukraine forces were fighting against them, and because of big number of soldiers, Ukrainian forces didn't have opportunity to eliminate all of them, and to save Ukrainian soldiers' life, they have to withdraw troops for maybe a couple of kilometers. But this distance have been done by Russians during the 11 months of war. Now they can say that during 8 months of war they managed to capture a big Ukrainian village. And after that, we know that Ukrainian president visited London, Paris, and Brussels. And there was really successful meetings. He met with Great Britain Prime Minister, and in France he met with Emmanuel Macron, President of France, and Chancellor of Germany, and all of them expressed their support for Ukraine, for Ukrainian soldiers, and promised us to provide Ukraine warplanes, maybe to start drilling to use these planes, because we know that we at the 8 Ramstein meeting were promised more than 300 tanks, more than 700 arm carriers, military ammunition, and additional equipment, which would allow us to start our offensive operations. But all these things we will have in couple of months. And now Ukrainian forces are fighting with reserves we had in Ukraine before. But I wanted to say our listeners that Ukraine have been fighting with the Russia Federation 8 years, since 2014. But open part of war started in the 24th of February previous year, but really Ukraine was fighting with Russians, have been fighting with Russians since 2014. And because of it, we have run out of ammunition, because we know that Russia has facilities from Soviet time, and they had a lot of artillery, tanks, and a lot of ammunition, and they have profitable business selling energy resources, and they formed big storages to start fighting. But for example, they are fighting, demonstrating that they are second biggest army in the world, and at the same time Ukrainian forces have managed to eliminate 300 Russia's planes, and 300 Russia's helicopters have been eliminated by Ukrainian forces, and 3,000 of tanks, and more than 5,000 armed carriers, and etc. And exactly, Ukrainian forces have lost a lot of our military machines. And for example, just before the war, Ukraine had 100 warplanes. But now we are at the age of warplanes, and because of it, Ukraine president asked our allies to give us warplanes to have opportunity to prevent their attacks. Because we know that type of war Russia is waging against Ukraine is cruelty war, and we know that they are fighting against democracy in Ukraine and democracy around the world, and they started this war against all world society, demonstrating that they can dominate because they have nuclear weapon, threatening from time to time, threatening us nuclear weapon. And I wanted to remind our watchers and listeners that Ukraine had before, just after Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine had third biggest arsenal nuclear weapon, but it was transmitted that Ukraine made decision and sent this weapon to Russia Federation in exchange of security guarantees, but they have they don't have any international rules, international law, any international agreement. It's nothing for Russia Federation now,
right.
And they decided to start war. Sorry.
Let me ask you this question. Sorry for crossing you. Is Ukraine still on the offense? And if so, do they have any intentions of taking back Crimea?
First of all, I'd say that Ukraine forces today started again our offensive operation, and according to the information from Ukrainian forces, 72nd Brigade have captured against a city which was lost a couple of days, and Ukraine forces have started against our offensive operation. But concerning Crimea, I'd say that we are fighting with Russians in Crimea by drones, which is provided from volunteers sphere. It isn't military examples, and we are limited in it. And I wanted to tell that Ukraine forces managed to eliminate their cruiser Moscow by Ukrainians domestic produced weapon Neptune, and them they were eliminated Russia's ships by sea drones. Ukrainian handmade drones, and now distance to Crimea is quite long. We have opportunity to eliminate facilities, Russia's facilities in Crimea. But after liberating right bank of Dnieper, Ukrainian forces received the opportunity to hold under fire control all ways to Crimea and from Crimea. But because of limits ammunition 155 millimeters, Ukrainian forces have no opportunity to hold it long hours because we, as I have said, are limited in ammunition and long-range ammunition. I hope that nearest future we will have opportunity and we will have to deter this new Russian soldiers wave, and after elimination them at the western, at the east part of Ukraine, we will be ready to start Ukraine offensive operation against occupiers who control part of Ukraine. And yes. I think that we will be able to do it just after winter time, because there will be bad weather for yes. tanks, and maybe in a couple of months the soil will be ready to hold heavy tanks, and after that we will be ready to start this offensive operation. Yes. And now,
Sorry, yes. I want to ask this question. U.S. had just really doubled down on their assistance to Ukraine, as well as Germany now providing tanks. With this kind of support, would this make a more meaningful headway into this war?
To be honest, we thanks all countries who are ready to support Ukraine, and we know that Ukraine managed to survive in first months of Russia's aggression, thanks United States support, Great Britain support, Canada support, our neighbors Poland support, because it was awful, unpredictable Russia separation. And after we managed to deter them for a couple of months, we managed to build new army, because Ukrainian army is really strong army, and is continuous strengthening every day with additional equipment and additional ammunition. And concerning Germany and their behavior, I don't know, but I'd like to avoid criticizing their position, because now they are ready to supply to Ukraine, Russia's built tanks, which was sold to different countries, and now is repairing to supply to Ukraine. And Germany produced tanks which would allow us to start our offensive operation. And you know that Ukraine ambassador who worked for Ukraine, who was ambassador of Ukraine, was fired after he criticized Germany's position, because I agree with our officials that we cannot criticize them because they were working with the Russia Federation long time. They political strategy was based at the cooperation with the Russia Federation and China, and now there are a lot of challenges for them, for their economy. But under public pressure, under Germany's people pressure, Germany's power have made their decision concerning support of Ukraine. And they supported us in humanitarian sphere, and they helped us with budgeting, because during the last previous year, Ukraine lost more than 35% budgeting, and couldn't pay essential needs. And for it was loaned money from different sources. And now I hope this so-called Ramstein coalition, which have included more than 50 countries, formed the new society which support Ukraine, and Germany and any countries must understand personally at which size they are working. If they are working for autocracy and funding autocracy to kill Ukrainians now, and we understand that if Russians allowed to move further in Ukraine, other countries will face the same. And because of it, Ukrainian authorities asked them to give us military machines, warplanes, to give us opportunity to eliminate Russian army in Ukraine, because instead they will have to use this machine personally. And now we speak with them that it's their people choice, and people understand that cooperation with the Russia Federation will lead to next collapse, and now all country knows it, and because of it, European Union have established cap prices for Russia's oil and petrol and diesel and lowest prices for oil for after next meeting, and it helps us to prevent them, but they have a lot of resources, maybe doesn't of times than Ukraine has, and Ukraine economy is suffering, but Russia economy is suffering, but more slowly. There are not missiles at their territory, and they are transporting military machines through their territory to Ukraine border. They are gathering troops at Russia's territory, and we have no opportunity to shell them because it's prohibited according to the agreement if we have long-range missiles. And our defense minister promised that we will not use these missiles against Russia's territory, but we ask it just to use it against Russians at the Ukraine territory, because we know that this war. Russia wants to exchange to war for attritions, and it means that we must survive in these conditions, and it would allow Europe to hold Europe and to hold the democratic world, because we know that they wanted to weaken European Union, democratic countries, NATO countries, just to to change world order, so-called according to their president's opinion, but his opinion in his head are changing regularly. Okay. He don't know why he started this war, and he doesn't know what to do next. Maybe it will be last year if we strengthened by world society.
Yeah, what is the refugee and humanitarian status look right now in the Ukraine? How are you all coping with this?
To be honest, we have some problems because of internally displaced persons. From occupied territory, Ukraine government regularly making decision concerning transporting people from territories which is in danger, and they are located at the west part of Ukraine, and part of Ukrainians who's a refugee in European countries have came back to Ukraine, and now we can see in capital of Ukraine that there are a lot of Ukrainians who were in Europe in the spring last year have came back to Ukraine. And for example, just before our interview, I asked my daughter, who's student Kiev University, how many from her group students are abroad, and he answered that nobody. But in the spring, half of her group was abroad, and I think that we will rebuild our country with our ally support. But now we believe our military forces, and we are sure that we will be able to defeat Russia Federation. But for it, our president and Ukraine, on behalf of Ukrainians, asked additional weapon for our army. And we will do our work, and to punish Ukraine president positive discussion with world leaders. Russia decided to shell Ukraine's territory by missiles. Yesterday we had a lot of shelling. We had for air alert, and most of missiles were shooted down, but Ukrainian air defense forces with Western support to Ukraine were supplied NASAM system, IRIS-T system, and now we know that Ukrainian soldiers are being drilled to use the Patriot air defense system, and we are sure that we will be able to defend our sky from Russians with this type of technique and ammunition. And I'd say
Vasil,
that...
sorry for crossing you, but we have come to the final minute of the program for the day. And I want to say it was a pleasure having you on. We're going to definitely chat again on this. And for all those who have been tuning in on Living in the 21st Century, I want to say to you, have a very pleasant day and goodbye.